It's Sunday, September 29th, 2024, and unfortunately, there's enough activity out there to prompt an update video this weekend. We've got a lot of stuff going on in the tropics. This is about as active as we've seen it so far this year. Of course, we've got a ton of stuff going on in the main development region. We've got Hurricane Isaac up here, but I think what most people are going to be interested in is this system, our next Central American gyre that could become a system in the Gulf. What's it going to do? Is it going to impact the Gulf Coast? What's it mean for areas farther inland? We're going to cover all of that in today's video. But first, of course, we've got to talk a little bit about what just happened with Hurricane Helene and the aftermath and what's going on right now. The Y'all Squad has been working tirelessly trying to figure out how we're going to provide assistance during what is likely a $15 to $30 billion or more mega disaster here across a lot of the southeastern United States. From the Big Bend area of Florida, where this made landfall as the strongest storm that area has ever seen, through Georgia, South Carolina, and especially up here around Asheville, North Carolina, millions of people are still reeling from this historic storm. Some of these places have literally been physically and geographically changed forever, and the rebuilding process is going to take an entire lifetime. Tons of rainfall records and inland pressure and wind records were broken, and you can just tell by some of the clips that we're seeing out there on social media that this is something that we haven't seen in a very long time. It is very likely that this storm will be remembered as one of the strongest storms of not only all of our lifetimes, but of the modern era in general. At one point, nearly 5 million people were without power, and thankfully we're going down now, like that number's going down, but we're still looking at well over 1 million people without power, and I'm being told that especially in North Carolina and portions of South Carolina, there's some people out there that might be without power for weeks, maybe even months. And not just power, we're talking about internet and cell service as well. The latest official report on fatalities is unfortunately 65. We know of at least 65 people whose lives were taken as a result of Hurricane Helene and the flooding that happened afterwards. 24 of those are in South Carolina, 18 in Georgia, 12 in Florida, and 8 plus in North Carolina, 2 in Tennessee, 1 in Virginia. Unfortunately, that number's probably going to go up. We've still got a lot of people missing. A lot of places haven't really even been reached yet, especially in North Carolina, where all the roads are washed out and people are way back in those hills, and they haven't been able to be helped in the traditional way just yet. So unfortunately, I think as time goes on, we're going to hear about more. And once again, the Y'all Squad's been working tirelessly to figure out what we're going to do to help. We did raise $40,000 thanks to you guys during the live coverage. Some of the stuff that we're thinking about doing right now is obviously filling up some semi trucks full of supplies and sending it down there. Some additional stuff that we would like to do is potentially put those supplies on helicopters and kind of drop them into places that need them. We'd be willing to cover any expense that is associated with that. But obviously, there's a lot of expense there. Another thing that we're thinking about doing is getting a bunch of Starlink terminals, as many as we possibly can, and then distributing those to local officials who can put them in the right places to help people be able to, contact their loved ones and people in the outside world, especially in those places where it might be months before we see internet and power. So if you want to help us do those things, please consider going over to theyallsquad.org, hitting the donate button, and making a tax-deductible official contribution to our 501c3 nonprofit organization. You can do a one-time or monthly contribution. Obviously, anything helps, and I am personally going to match every donation, every dollar, up to $10,000. So if we can just raise an additional $10,000 today as a result of this video, then we're going to have a total of $60,000 to go out there and do some of the stuff that we talked about. So thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to help. Once again, theyallsquad.org. There's a link in the description. And once again, we've got to start looking into the future as there are more storms coming. All of this stuff out here in the main development region, right now it's too early to worry about any of this. I'm pretty sure that Joyce is going to curve out to sea. This next system behind it is likely to do the same thing. Now, the one behind that, who knows? This one could flow all the way over here into the Caribbean, but it's too early to even think about that right now. So we're going to kind of not worry too much about them. Hurricane Isaac up here is not really going to hurt anybody. It is going to flow up towards Europe at some point, but before it gets there, it's going to weaken significantly, only bringing some strong winds and some rain to those areas. So the one storm that we are most concerned about right now is our developing Central American gyre that will likely turn into some sort of tropical system around the Yucatan Peninsula. Sounds familiar, right? According to some of the latest data that we've gotten in, this does turn into some sort of tropical depression in the Gulf of Mexico, and then unfortunately comes up into a very similar area as we saw Hurricane Helene make landfall, and then of course continue to go inland and cause some problems. Now, the good news is everything that we've seen so far from all the models, nothing looks quite as intense as Helene. Unfortunately, it's still too far out to kind of breathe too much of a sigh of relief there because, as we all know, things can change a lot. I am personally pretty optimistic about this because all of the models are very inconsistent. The 0Z suite has a completely different look than the 6Z suite, and the Euro has a completely different look than the GFS. Before Helene, everything was pretty similar. So unfortunately, I don't have a lot of confidence in the forecast, but I do have confidence in there's a pretty good chance that this is going to turn into something not quite as intense as what we just saw. However, anytime we get a system in the Caribbean or the Gulf of Mexico, especially in a situation like this where if this makes landfall, it's going to probably make landfall while people are still without power and still recovering from the other storm, we have to take it seriously. So the threat is on the table for another storm forming in the Gulf and then coming right up into some of the hardest hit areas. Right now, it's too early to tell you any more details than that, okay? Just know that the threat is there. It'll probably be early next week or Tuesday before we have any more concrete updates that are going to help you decide whether or not we should be taking action. But just know that the threat is on the table for another storm in the Gulf. One good thing is that the sea surface temperatures have dropped a little bit where we had Helene go over the Gulf of Mexico, dropping a lot of rain. So that top layer of the water is really a little bit cooler than what it was whenever Helene went over it, and that's what allowed the rapid intensification. So there's a slightly less chance that we see such intense rapid intensification with any new system that forms. However, this is still bathwater. This is still really warm stuff in the Gulf of Mexico, and unfortunately, I don't think that it's going to completely mitigate the risk for our next storm. But I'm just trying to pick out some good news here. There is a slightly less favorable environment for a major hurricane now, thanks to Helene. Now, going even further into the future and talking about everybody else, after we deal with whatever this is, okay, and hopefully it fizzles out and it's not this big deal, but if it is, that's our next focus. Outside of that and after that, there's nothing to talk about. We are in an incredibly quiet weather pattern here. We've got what we call zonal flow, where everything just gets scurried off to the east. There's not any major changes in temperatures or troughs or ridges to talk about, and that leads to some quiet weather. There's not going to be a lot going on out there, maybe until the middle of October, where we start to see a couple of troughs move into the Rockies. And of course, this is all dependent on how intense that hurricane or that tropical system gets. If this becomes a bigger deal, it could alter things a little bit more. But right now, I'm hoping that we see nothing too much with this. I really hope that the inconsistencies with the models mean that we might not have a storm, and then we're smooth sailing for quite some time here until we've got to worry about some storms that'll move through the continental U.S. Later in the month. As far as temperatures go, over the next 8 to 14 days, nothing crazy to talk about here as well, because we've got that zonal flow. There's no drastic changes happening anywhere. We're going to be near normal for the majority of the eastern U.S., a little bit above average in the west. However, with that being said, there's a chance that I'm going to be making a video almost every day this week, simply because of the developing tropical systems that we have out there. So any sort of updates that happen, I'm going to be letting you know right here. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn notifications on, and of course, the moment that we think there's something more serious going on in the Gulf of Mexico, we will be the first to let you know, okay? Right now, don't be scared, be prepared, subscribe, and please consider going over to theyawsquad.org and helping us help out. And we'll keep you updated on that as well throughout the week, as there's going to be a lot of developments there. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.